Hi. Did you know that 1/3 of all college students take at least one online class? This number becomes even more remarkable when you understand that half of all those students that take online classes are enrolled solely in online classes. So this issue becomes much more important to understand when you realize that it's only growing in prevalence and that it's up 8%, 0.8% from last year. As this continues to grow, online classing in general and the use of it, it is really important to understand how it compares to traditional mortar and brick colleges. So this is something that a lot of people have looked into, but there's a lot of mixed results. So we're going to discuss them here, but ultimately it's important to understand that there is a need to research this and to dive into why this is important, because it is only increasing in prevalence. So in order to better explain, we're going to look at what a few researchers have said about this issue. First off, we're going to discuss some of the pros of online classes and why there's even the motivation to pursue it. For one, it's cheaper for students. So if someone is financially restricted, they're able to attend online classes at a much higher rate and get their degrees. This, of course, is why students are encouraged or motivated to take at least some online classes while still at a brick and mortar school, because you're able to save money and shorten the amount of time that you're in school as well. Not only is it cheaper for the students, it ends up being more cost effective and yields higher gains for the institution themselves as well, because you reduce other costs such as renting of buildings or building those buildings, and as well as less professors are necessary. You don't have the costs of electricity and all of the property costs. And so it's a really important topic, and then we can understand why there's even a desire to go into online classes. Some of the cons that go along with it, there have been a lot of researchers that have looked at these cons, and one thing is that it's easier to cheat. If you're not in a class, it's easier to go look up the answers. Especially, it's hard to limit cell phone use. In tests as well, it's getting very difficult to find different ways to proctor a test online, because as this video is a good example, someone could be behind with note cards giving me different prompts that would help me do something that I'm not supposed to be able to do in a test. Versus if you're in a brick and mortar school, yes, there's still the threat of cheating. However, if there's someone in the room with you when you're taking it, it's a lot harder to get away with it. Other things are, they've noticed that students actually don't use all of the resources if it's online versus if it was in class. So specifically, there's been research that's looked at the use of rubrics. So rubrics are readily available on most online classes. And students took this class and they were surveyed afterward to understand what it is exactly, whether or not they were aware that the rubric was available to them. And ultimately, all of them said that they were aware that it was available. However, most of them said that they never looked at it. Versus when this was compared with a traditional class, it was observed that all of the students looked over it and tailored their work towards it. And then there's other research that supports that students actually will fare better in classes if they look over the rubric and use that to base their work off of. However, this is where it really gets interesting. There is a lot of different research out there that suggests that the differences between an online class and traditional classrooms aren't substantial when you look at learning outcomes. So there was a specific study done by Stephen Stack in which they randomized two classes. It was the same instructor, and he would give the same talks in the classroom as were seen online. And what they found was that so what happened was they tested at the end of this research project, and what they found was the research actually shows that both students were just as likely to score on the standardized test. They had the same scores, the same average scores, the two different classrooms. So the actual learning outcomes of online classing and traditional classing, according to this one study, suggests that there really isn't that big of a difference. The other thing too, which is interesting, is that both classes rated how much they liked the class experience about the same. So even with the students, there's not that big of a difference. So really, what I'm trying to say here is that online classes should be pursued for most institutions that aren't currently engaging in them, because it does have better yields in money, and students are able to graduate more quickly. They can shorten the amount of time that they're in school, and learning outcomes are very much similar, if not better, depending on the way that it's formatted. Thank you for your time.